Hello everybody and welcome back to another box office update video. My name is Joker, and before we start I'd just like to say I hope you're all having a fantastic Wednesday. So it's been a little over a month after Avengers Endgame finally hit theaters, and everyone's kind of wondering where the box office numbers are going and how much farther it's gonna go. But I think one of the big questions on everyone's mind is, will it beat Avatar? And I think I can safely say, yeah, I believe it is going to beat Avatar at the box office to be the #1 highest grossing film of all time. So as of Monday, May 27th, the box office numbers for Avengers Endgame worldwide was 2.686. It is literally this close. It needs $102 million more to be tied with Avatar. So if it gets 103 million, then boom, it becomes the highest grossing film of all time. We are this close, and it's only got much more room to go before it actually hits that mark. A couple of people are wondering how much longer it's going to actually stay in theaters and how much money it's going to get from that, but as it turns out, these past couple of weekends, while small, they've been getting a lot of big numbers in there. Double digits in the millions, up towards 10, above 10 million a weekend, which is fantastic now because we're so close to that point where it doesn't really matter how much we get. The drop-off is always going to keep happening. There are always going to be lower numbers every day for this movie just because they made so much money from the beginning that it was impossible to have a positive number after that because it just kept dropping because the number was just way too high. Now, that doesn't mean that this is not going to have its struggles on the way there, because it definitely will, because it is still 100 million that it has to make, and most movies struggle to make that in a weekend. And now that we're at the point that Avengers is only going to be making anywhere from $1 million to less a day, the issue is that every movie that comes out from here on out for the summer is going to be a threat to this movie. Now, of course, if you're set on going to see Avengers Endgame, you're going to go see Avengers Endgame. That's fine. Obviously nothing's going to change your mind. But to the general population, there's a lot coming out this summer that is going to draw a lot of money away from Avengers Endgame. But I think if the movie has enough time to hit July and still stay in theaters, that it'll definitely have another boost and get it to hit that 2.789 and become the highest grossing film of all time. So right now, literally any movie coming out is going to become a threat to Avengers Endgame, and that's just because it's not making a lot of money. And we got a lot of movies coming out. Aladdin just came out, and that's really doing a lot of damage. And on top of that, we're going to have The Lion King coming out a little later this summer, and that's really going to draw a lot of the crowd. On top of that, you also have Toy Story 4, another kids movie. So a lot of kid-friendly movies coming out this summer that's going to draw all of the family in to go see it. And that's going to take away a lot of the box office money that could go toward Avengers Endgame. Even on the flip-flop side for the adult, more, I guess you could say mature audience, you have a bunch of horror movies coming out. Ma, which looks really, really fucked up. Then you have the reboot of Child's Play, and on top of that, you also have Annabelle Comes Home, which to me looks fantastic. All these movies are going to take away, all the those are cult classics in a way. That's going to draw in another crowd, and again, it's going to take more money away from Avengers. But if it can keep going up until Spider-Man Far From Home, which comes out in the beginning of July for that July 4th weekend, I think it's going to be fantastic. For one, 4th of July weekend is a great time for movies, so obviously Spider-Man Far From Home is going to be the big selling point there. There's going to be a lot of people going to see that movie, and a lot of people dragging to see Endgame as well, saying, if you haven't seen Endgame, you got to see it before we go see Far From Home, because it's a direct sequel, what happens after the snap. Obviously, if you haven't seen it by now, I'm sorry, but it's been out for a while, you need to go see it. So I think if it can stay in theaters long enough that it's going to be the saving grace. And when I'm saying I think it'll stay in theaters is mainly because most movies stay in theaters for about a 6-month period. When Avengers Infinity War came out last year in April, it didn't hit DVD and Blu-ray sales until August, which is about a 6-month gap. Now, in this case, it doesn't always do the same thing. They have some movies that hit theaters and go to digital download exactly the same day, which I don't understand and I'm not really a fan of. But even movies like Captain Marvel, which came out in the beginning of March, is actually going on Blu-ray sales and DVD sales on June 11th and is already now out available for digital download. But because this movie has such a high audience rating, it's going to keep it in theaters for as long as it can to try to get that gross amount of money. And of course, everyone at the studio wants this to become the highest grossing film of all time, and it should be. So they're going to do everything in their power to squeeze all the little change out of your pockets, all the little bit you got left, so it all goes towards this movie to get it to that point. And if it can hit all the way up to Spider-Man Far From Home, we're going to hit that no problem, just in time for the DVD sales to come out in a month or two after that. But at the same time, that's also another threat, because Spider-Man Far From Home being what happens directly after Endgame, it's going to be a big thing that everyone's going to go see Spider-Man, and most of them will probably go and see Endgame again because of that. But you also have to take into account that the people that are going to go see Spider-Man are going to be much more likely to see that instead of going to see Endgame and Spider-Man at the same time. So it's probably going to drop some numbers there. But I'm hopeful that in the opening weekend for Spider-Man Far From Home, while people are standing in line to go see the movie, maybe they'll go see Endgame to get in line and then go see Far From Home on that opening weekend stretch. Which I honestly think could bring in another big weekend for Avengers Endgame and bring it up to another total. And, you know, if the movie does really well and it has like a great, let's say it has $175 million opening weekend for Far From Home. I'm just throwing numbers out there. It could potentially mean that you could get anywhere from a max of maybe $30 to $35 million for that weekend for Endgame as well, for the people that wanted to see both movies. And since it's the 4th of July weekend and everyone's going and everyone's taking the whole family, more ticket sales are going to happen for that. And I know there's a lot of moving parts to that, but when you really look at it, movies that are about the same thing really tend to carry each other through. Even when you go back and check out my other videos when I was talking about box office numbers for Avengers Endgame when it first came out during that opening weekend, and actually spiked the sales of both Shazam and Captain Marvel. Even though Shazam was a DC film, it was also a superhero movie. So in Captain Marvel being tied into it, and you, after watching Infinity War, you really wanted to see Captain Marvel before you saw Endgame because of the after credit scene that happened in Captain Marvel. And the same thing here, finishing off Endgame and now seeing the trailer for Far From Home, you know it happens directly after that, so we got to see what's going to be happening with the world after the whole ordeal with Thanos. So because of that, everyone's going to want to go back and watch Endgame to get a refresher, going right back in to go watch Spider-Man Far From Home, unless you already saw Endgame like 12 or so times and you already have the movie memorized. But for the most part, that's exactly what's going to be happening. So I think overall, if it can make it to July to have Spider-Man Far From Home give it that boost, it's going to be a blessing and a curse in both cases. It'll lose money, but it'll also technically gain money. It's a weird thing, but I wonder if that'll also take money away from Spider-Man Far From Home as well. Things to look into, things that I will be tracking when that movie comes out. But of course, these are all guesses and speculation, and it's all coming from ideas from past box office numbers, so I have no concrete evidence that it actually 100% will raise the numbers, but we can only hope. But until I have more ideas and more evidence of what could boost up Avengers Endgame to hit that #1 spot, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Remember, if you like what you saw, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below if you would like to see more box office videos or if you'd like to see anything else. But until then, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.